The crystal chandelier above table 12 needed cleaning. I could see the dust gathering on its lowest tier even from where I stood by the kitchen doors, my arms aching from carrying trays for the past 6 hours. The scent of expensive cologne and aged wine mingled with the sharp tang of lemon from the polishing cloth tucked in my apron pocket. My feet screamed inside my cheap ballet flats, the ones I'd resoled myself because buying new ones meant choosing between shoes and groceries. Giovanni's was the kind of restaurant where Silicon Valley executives brought their mistresses and old money families celebrated in hushed, refined tones. I was invisible here. Just another server in black slacks and a white button-down, weaving between tables with practiced efficiency, my face a mask of professional pleasantness that hid the exhaustion threatening to pull me under. Table 7 needs water, Marcus hissed as he passed me, his arms loaded with dirty plates. And 12 just sat down, VIP section. I nodded, grabbing a pitcher of sparkling water, my reflection wavering in its glass surface. 26 years old, and I looked 40. Dark circles I couldn't afford to conceal properly. Hair pulled back so tightly my temples throbbed. This was what 3 jobs and a mountain of my mother's medical bills looked like. The VIP section occupied the back corner of Giovanni's, separated from the main dining area by frosted glass panels, etched with grapevines. I'd worked here 8 months, and had only entered that space twice. Both times my hands had trembled so badly, I'd nearly dropped a bottle of wine that cost more than my rent. I pushed through the glass door, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. 4 men sat at table 12. 3 of them wore dark suits that probably cost more than my car, if I still had a car. They sat with their backs to the walls, eyes constantly moving, scanning, security. I'd seen enough movies to recognize the type, but it was the 4th man who made my breath catch somewhere between my lungs and my throat. He sat facing the entrance, positioned so he could see every exit, every entrance, every vulnerable point in the room. Silver hair swept back from a face that couldn't decide whether it belonged to a Roman senator or a Renaissance painting, maybe 60. Maybe older. It was impossible to tell. Age had carved him into something more rather than less. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, eyes the color of smoke and steel that tracked my approach with predatory precision. His suit was black, perfectly tailored, with a charcoal shirt underneath and no tie. A watch that glinted platinum caught the light as he lifted a hand, just slightly, barely a movement at all, and the 3 other men went silent. The scent reached me before I reached the table. Cedar and gunpowder, expensive tobacco and something darker, something that made my hindbrain scream warnings my body was too tired to heed. "Good evening, gentlemen." My voice came out steady. Years of customer service had taught me how to lie with tone. "Can I start you off with something to drink?" The 3 security types ordered without looking at me. Scotch, neat, bourbon, rocks, sparkling water with lime, but he said nothing. Just watched me with those storm cloud eyes, his gaze moving across my face like he was reading something written there in a language only he understood. "And for you, sir," I forced myself to meet his eyes. Forced myself not to look away, even though everything in me wanted to drop my gaze, to submit to whatever silent demand radiated from him like heat from asphalt in summer. "What's your name?" His voice was gravel and silk, accented, Italian, but smoothed by years of English until it became something uniquely his own. "Lily, sir." I shifted the water pitcher to my other hand, my fingers cramping. "What would you like to drink, Lily?" He said it like he was tasting it, testing how it felt in his mouth. "You've been on your feet too long. Your left ankle. You're favoring it." Ice skated down my spine. I'd turned my ankle 4 hours ago, stumbling over a chair some tech bro had pushed back without looking. I'd been so careful not to limp. "I'm fine, sir. What can I—" "Sit down." It wasn't loud, wasn't harsh, but the command in those 2 words hit me like a physical force. The 3 other men shifted, watching, waiting. I can't. I'm working and— "Sit. Down." He pulled out the chair beside him, not across from him, beside him, his movements economical and controlled. "Your manager won't object. He was right, and we both knew it. Men like this didn't get told no, not at Giovanni's, not anywhere." I could already see Marco, the floor manager, watching through the frosted glass, his expression carefully neutral. Whatever this man wanted, Marco would make sure he got it. My legs folded before my brain fully processed the decision. I sat, the chair still warm from whoever had occupied it before, and set the water pitcher on the table with a hand that had started to shake. Up close, he was devastating. A scar cut through his left eyebrow, pale and old. His hands rested on the table, broad and scarred across the knuckles, a heavy signet ring on his right index finger engraved with a symbol I couldn't quite make out. "How much do you owe?" he asked. The question punched the air from my lungs. "Excuse me?" "Medical bills." "I assume that's what has you working yourself to death across 3 jobs." He lifted one hand, and one of the security men immediately produced a phone, which he slid across the table. "You have the look of someone drowning. How much?" My mouth opened, closed. Heat flooded my face, shame and anger mixing into something toxic. "That's none of your business, and I need to—" $347,000. His eyes never left mine. "Your mother. Stage 4. The experimental treatment that insurance won't cover." The world tilted sideways. The chandelier above us swayed. Or maybe that was just my vision going dark at the edges. "How do you—" "I make it my business to know things." He leaned back, and the movement made him seem larger somehow, like he took up more space than physics should allow. "You're going to lose her. The treatment won't work. It's too late." "Stop." The word came out broken. "You have no right, but you'll spend every cent you have, and every cent you'll ever make trying anyway, because that's who you are. That's what you do." Something flickered in those gray eyes. Not pity. Something else. Something that made my skin feel too tight. "I'm going to make you an offer, Lily. I don't want—" "Your mother's bills. Paid in full. The best hospice care money can buy for whatever time she has left. Enough money left over to let you stop killing yourself like this." He paused. "In exchange, you have dinner with me. Here. Tomorrow night. 7 o'clock. The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. I laughed. A sharp, slightly hysterical sound that made the security men tense. "That's insane. You're insane. I don't even know you, and you're offering me, what, $300,000 for a dinner date?" Yes, just that. Just yes. Like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. "Why?" I gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles white. "Why would you do that?" He was quiet for a long moment, studying me with an intensity that made me feel pinned, dissected, seen in ways I'd spent years trying to avoid. When he spoke, his voice had gone softer, almost gentle, and somehow that was more terrifying than any threat could have been. "Because everyone told me I was too old for certain things, too set in my ways, too cold, too dangerous." His lips curved into something that might have been a smile on a different face. "And because you're the first person in 20 years who looked me in the eye without fear or calculation. Just exhaustion. Just humanity. I don't understand. You will." He stood, and the 3 security men immediately rose with him, their movements synchronized like dancers who'd practiced the same routine 1,000 times. "Tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Wear whatever you want. You'll look beautiful regardless." He turned to leave, and panic seized my chest. This was crazy. Dangerous. Wrong in ways I couldn't even articulate. But $347,000. My mother, comfortable and pain-free instead of suffering in our roach-infested apartment. The possibility of sleep, real sleep, for the first time in 3 years. I didn't say yes, I called after him. He paused at the frosted glass door, glancing back over his shoulder. The light caught his profile, throwing half his face into shadow, and for a moment he looked like something from a Renaissance painting of the devil, beautiful and terrible and utterly inhuman. "You will." And then he was gone, leaving nothing but the scent of cedar and gunpowder and a business card on the table where his hand had rested. Black, expensive cardstock with a single name embossed in silver, Salvatore Constantino. I picked it up with trembling fingers, and on the back, in bold, slashing handwriting, was a number, not a phone number, an account number. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from an unknown number. "Check your bank account." With shaking hands, I opened the banking app I checked obsessively every morning, the one that usually showed a balance hovering somewhere between $200 and -$30, depending on which bills had cleared. The number that stared back at me had so many digits I had to count them twice. $347,000. Exactly. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock. The text read, "The debt is paid regardless, but I hope you'll come anyway." The phone slipped from my fingers, clattering on the floor. Marco appeared at my shoulder, his face pale, his hands fluttering nervously. "Lily? Are you all right? Mr. Constantino, did he hurt you?" "No." The word felt like it came from someone else's mouth. "No, he didn't hurt me." But as I bent to retrieve my phone, my hands still shaking, I caught my reflection in its dark screen. My eyes were wide, pupils blown, my face flushed. I looked like someone who'd just stepped off a cliff and hadn't yet started falling. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, I'd already been falling for a very long time. I just hadn't noticed until Salvatore Constantino had appeared to catch me, or drag me down into the dark with him. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. Silver hair, storm cloud eyes, that scar cutting through his eyebrow like a warning sign I'd ignored. The money sat in my account like a living thing, pulsing, impossible, terrifying. I'd checked it 17 times between midnight and dawn, half convinced it would vanish, that I'd imagined the whole thing in some exhaustion-induced hallucination, but it was real. $347,000. Real. At 6 a.m., I called the hospice facility I'd been researching for months, the one with the gardens and the private rooms and the pain management specialist who actually gave a damn. The one I'd known we could never, ever afford. "We'd like to arrange intake for my mother," I'd said, my voice breaking on the word mother. "Today, if possible." The intake coordinator hadn't even blinked at the cost. Money talked, and apparently, I now spoke its language fluently. By noon, my mother was settled into a room that smelled like lavender instead of antiseptic and despair. She'd cried when she saw it, the first tears I'd seen from her in months that weren't from pain. The first smile that reached her eyes since the diagnosis. "How did you afford this, baby?" she'd whispered. Her hand, so thin now, barely more than bone and translucent skin, clutching mine. "Don't worry about it, Mama." I'd kissed her forehead, breathing in the scent of her, fading now, disappearing a little more each day. Just rest. Just be comfortable. But her eyes had searched my face with a mother's intuition, seeing too much, understanding that something had shifted. Something had changed her daughter between yesterday and today. "What did you do, Lily?" "Nothing bad," I'd lied. "I promise." Now it was 6:45 p.m., and I stood in front of my apartment's cracked mirror, barely recognizing myself. I'd gone home after settling my mother in, intending to call the number on that black business card and tell Salvatore Constantino that I couldn't do this. That dinner with a strange man, a man who radiated danger like other people radiated cologne, was insane, regardless of the money. But my hand had dialed a different number instead. My friend Rachel, who worked at a high-end boutique and owed me 36 favors. "I need a dress," I'd told her. "Something appropriate for, I don't even know. Dinner with someone important." Rachel hadn't asked questions, bless her, just told me to come by. An hour later, I'd walked out with a dress I could never have afforded in 1,000 years, Rachel refusing payment with a knowing look that said we'd talk about this later. The dress was midnight blue, almost black in certain lights. It hugged my body in ways that made me feel exposed and powerful simultaneously. The neckline was modest, the hem just above my knees, but something about the cut, the fabric, the way it moved when I moved, made me feel like a different person. I'd left my hair down for the first time in months, dark waves falling past my shoulders. Minimal makeup. I'd never learned to do much more than mascara and lip gloss anyway. Small silver earrings my mother had given me for my 21st birthday. In the mirror, a stranger stared back at me, someone who looked like she belonged in Giovanni's VIP section. Someone who looked like she could sit across from a man like Salvatore Constantino without shattering into 1,000 pieces. The illusion was paper thin, but maybe it would hold for one night. My phone buzzed. A text from the same unknown number. A car is waiting downstairs. I grabbed my purse, a borrowed clutch from Rachel, and headed down the 4 flights of stairs from my apartment, my heels clicking against cracked linoleum. The building smelled like old cooking oil and mildew, the hallway lights flickering with their usual unreliability. Outside, parked in front of my building like a sleek black shark among minnows, sat a Mercedes. Not just any Mercedes, an S-Class with windows tinted so dark they looked like solid obsidian. A man in a black suit stood beside the rear door, his stance screaming security, his eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses despite the evening hour. He opened the door as I approached, his expression carefully neutral. "Miss Lily, Mr. Constantino is waiting." The interior smelled like leather and that same cedar scent I remembered from the night before. The seats were butter soft, the kind of luxury I'd only ever seen in movies. As the door closed behind me with a heavy final click, I realized with a jolt of adrenaline that I was alone. Salvatore sat in the far corner of the back seat, separated from me by perhaps 2 feet of space that felt simultaneously too much and not nearly enough. He wore another suit, charcoal this time, with a black shirt that made his silver hair seem to glow in the dim interior light. Those gray eyes tracked over me, slow and deliberate, missing nothing. Heat crawled up my neck, my chest, my face. "You came," he said finally, his voice carrying a note of something that might have been surprise on a more expressive man. "You paid my mother's bills." I clutched my purse in my lap, knuckles white. "I keep my word. Most people would have taken the money and disappeared." The car pulled smoothly into traffic, the driver invisible behind a privacy partition of dark glass. "Run, change their number, moved." "I'm not most people. No." His lips curved into that almost smile again. "You're not." Silence settled between us, heavy with unasked questions. The car glided through the city, past buildings I recognized and then past ones I didn't, into neighborhoods where the streets were cleaner, the cars more expensive, the people more carefully polished. "Where are we going?" I finally asked, when the silence had stretched so long it felt like a physical presence, somewhere private. He shifted slightly, and I became hyper-aware of how close he was, how the scent of cedar seemed to wrap around me like smoke. Giovanni's is too public, too many eyes, too many ears. Fear spiked through my chest, sharp and sudden. I thought we were having dinner. We are. He must have seen something in my face because he added more gently, "I'm not going to hurt you, Lily. You have my word. The word of a man I don't even know." But even as I said it, I realized I was assessing him differently now. The security detail, the expensive car, the way the manager at Giovanni's had practically trembled when Salvatore walked in. The fact that he'd known my mother's medical bills down to the dollar. "You know who I am," I said slowly. "But I don't know who you are, not really. The name on the card, Salvatore Constantino, it sounds familiar, but I can't place it." "Good." He reached into his jacket pocket, and every muscle in my body tensed until he withdrew only a phone. "It means you don't spend your time reading crime reports or following organized crime coverage. Organized crime." The words hit me like ice water. "You're many things." He pocketed the phone again. "But primarily, I'm a businessman who operates in spaces where the law becomes flexible. A criminal. That's one word for it. No denial. No justification. Just calm acceptance of what he was." I should have asked the driver to stop. Should have demanded to be let out. Should have run screaming from this car and this man and the dark current of danger that swirled around him like an undertow. Instead, I heard myself ask, "Why me?" The car turned down a tree-lined street, where mansions sat behind iron gates and stone walls. Salvatore was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice had gone lower, rougher, like the words were being pulled from somewhere deep. "I'm 62 years old, Lily. I've built an empire on blood and fear and the kind of brutality most people can't imagine. I've done things that would make you sick if you knew. Things I can't undo. Things I wouldn't undo, even if I could." He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his eyes made my breath catch. "Everyone. My associates, my enemies, even my own family. They all said I was too old for certain things. Too cold. Too far gone. that I'd traded whatever humanity I had left for power decades ago. His hand lifted, and I went very still as his fingers brushed a strand of hair back from my face. The touch was gentle, reverent, completely at odds with everything he'd just said. And then you looked at me like I was just a man. Tired. Human. Not a monster or a myth or a means to an end. A man. I didn't know who you were. Exactly. His hand dropped away, but I could still feel the ghost of his touch against my skin. Do you understand what that's worth? To be seen as human by someone who has no reason to pretend. The car pulled through a gate that opened automatically, revealing a driveway that curved through manicured gardens toward a house that belonged on magazine covers. Modern architecture mixed with old-world elegance, stone and glass and soaring spaces lit from within like a jewel box. "This is your home?" I breathed. "One of them." The car stopped beneath a portico, and immediately the door opened. Not the driver this time, but another security man, this one older, with silver threading through his dark hair and eyes that assessed me like a threat, before dismissing me just as quickly. Salvatore exited first, then extended his hand to help me out. I hesitated only a moment before taking it. His palm was warm, calloused, his grip firm enough to steady me, but gentle enough to let me pull away if I wanted. I didn't want to. The realization should have terrified me. Instead, it settled into my chest like something that had always been there, just waiting for me to notice. Inside, the house was breathtaking. Marble floors reflected light from crystal chandeliers. Art that looked like it belonged in museums hung on walls painted in rich, warm tones. A staircase curved upward to a second floor, and through an archway I could see what looked like a formal dining room, but Salvatore led me past all of it, down a hallway lined with photographs I didn't have time to examine, to a room at the back of the house. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked gardens lit with soft golden lights. A table had been set for two, white linens, crystal glasses, silver that gleamed like moonlight. Candles flickered in the center, their flames dancing in a breeze I couldn't feel. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "Sit." He pulled out a chair, and I sat, feeling like I'd stepped into some fairy tale. The kind where the beautiful castle belonged to a beast. Dinner appeared as if by magic, staff who materialized and vanished like ghosts, leaving behind courses that smelled like heaven and probably cost more than I used to make in a week. Salvatore ate slowly, precisely, his table manners impeccable. We talked. About nothing. About everything. He asked about my mother, and I found myself telling him things I'd never told anyone. How guilty I felt that I sometimes resented her illness, how terrified I was of the moment she'd leave me, how exhausted I was from trying to be strong enough for both of us. He listened like every word mattered. Like I mattered. "And you?" I asked finally, emboldened by wine and the surreal intimacy of the moment. "Do you have family?" Something shuddered in his expression. "I had a wife. Once. A long time ago. What happened? She died. Flat. Final. A door slammed shut. 23 years ago. Cancer. I had all the money in the world and it didn't matter. Couldn't save her." My hand moved before I could think, reaching across the table to cover his. "I'm sorry." He stared at our joined hands, like he'd forgotten what comfort looked like. When his eyes met mine again, they blazed with something fierce and hungry and desperate. "Don't do that," he said roughly. "Don't make me feel things I can't afford to feel." "Why not?" "Because men like me don't get happy endings, Lily. We get blood and betrayal and eventual bullets. And anyone close to us gets caught in the crossfire." I should have pulled my hand back, should have stood up and walked away, should have remembered that this was a fairy tale. And fairy tales with beasts never ended well for the innocent girl. But I didn't pull away. Instead, I asked the question that had been burning in my chest since the moment he'd made his offer. "What do you really want from me?" His hand turned beneath mine, his fingers threading through mine, holding on like I was the only solid thing in a world gone liquid. "Everything," he said simply. "I want everything you're willing to give. And then I want more. I want to keep you safe and see you smile without exhaustion behind your eyes. I want to hear you laugh like you mean it. I want..." He stopped abruptly, his jaw clenching. You want what? I prompted, my heart hammering against my ribs. I want to be someone different than who I am. Someone who deserves you. His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand, the touch sending electricity up my arm. But I can't be. So instead, I'll take whatever scraps of your time you're willing to give me and pretend, for a little while, that I'm just a man having dinner with a beautiful woman. Not a monster, not a killer. Just a man. The vulnerability in those words broke something inside me, or maybe it built something. I couldn't tell anymore where my fear ended and something else, something dangerous and intoxicating began. Salvatore, I started, but he shook his head. Call me Sal, please, when it's just us, Sal. The name felt intimate on my tongue. I should go. This is too much, too fast, too... Yes. He released my hand, but his eyes held me captive. You should run. You should never look back. You should forget this night and me and everything about this. But... His smile was sharp enough to draw blood. But you won't. Because you felt it too, didn't you? That moment when the world shifted, and suddenly everything else felt like it was in black and white, and this, us, here, now, was the only color left. He was right, and we both knew it. The beast had shown me his castle, his vulnerability, his hunger. And I'd walked in anyway, eyes wide open, knowing exactly what kind of story this was, the kind that ended in ruins or salvation. And sitting there in the candlelight, Salvatore Constantino's gray eyes burning into mine, I realized I didn't care which. The next 3 weeks unraveled like a fever dream I couldn't wake from, and didn't want to. Sal didn't push, didn't demand, didn't call every day, or show up at my apartment unannounced. Instead, he appeared in my life like gravity, inevitable, inescapable, pulling me into his orbit one carefully measured increment at a time. The first week, he sent flowers to the hospice, not to me, to my mother. White roses, her favorite, with a card that read simply, "So she knows her daughter is cherished." My mother had held that card for an hour, her thin fingers trembling, her eyes searching my face with questions I couldn't answer. "He must be very special," she'd whispered. "He's dangerous, Mama. All the best ones are, baby." The second week, Sal invited me to an art gallery opening. Black tie. I'd worn the blue dress again. I didn't have anything else. And he'd appeared at my building in that same sleek Mercedes, stepping out to open my door himself this time, the security detail hovering at a discreet distance. At the gallery, people had parted for him like the Red Sea. Whispers followed us. His name, spoken with equal parts reverence and fear. Important men in expensive suits had approached to pay their respects, their eyes sliding over me with curiosity and calculation. Women in diamonds had watched him with hunger thinly veiled as sophistication, but his hand had stayed at the small of my back all night, possessive and warm, anchoring me to his side like I belonged there. "You're staring," I told him at one point, caught between a Rothko and his unwavering gaze. "I'm memorizing." His fingers had traced the line of my spine through the fabric of my dress, the touch burning like a brand. The way you look at art, like you're trying to find pieces of yourself in it. That's what art is for, isn't it? Reflection? For some. His voice had dropped lower, meant only for me in a room full of people. I look at you and see everything I thought I'd buried 23 years ago. Hope. Softness. The possibility of something beyond blood and business. I'd turned to face him fully then, aware of the eyes on us, not caring. "You're trying to scare me away." "Yes. It's not working. I know." And he'd smiled, a real smile this time, not that sharp almost thing, but something genuine and devastating. That's what terrifies me. The third week, everything changed. It started with a phone call at 2 a.m. I'd been dreaming, formless, anxious dreams where I was running through endless corridors, when my phone's shrill ring jerked me awake. Unknown number. "Hello?" My voice came out rough with sleep. "Lily." Sal's voice, sharp with something I'd never heard before. Urgency. Fear, maybe. I need you to listen very carefully. In exactly 3 minutes, 2 of my men will knock on your door. You're going to go with them. Don't pack anything. Don't ask questions. Just go. Ice flooded my veins. What's happening? Someone found out about you. A pause, filled with the sound of movement, voices in the background. Someone who wants to hurt me is going to try to hurt you instead. The men will take you somewhere safe. Don't fight them. Don't run. Just trust me. Sal, do you trust me, Lily? Did I? This man I'd known less than a month, this criminal who'd bought his way into my life with blood money and beautiful lies, this beast who looked at me like I was something precious instead of convenient. Yes, I whispered, and meant it. Good. Go. Now I'll find you when it's safe. The line went Exactly dead. 3 minutes later, the knock came. 2 men I'd never seen before, both wearing the same dark suits, the same carefully neutral expressions. One was younger, maybe 30, with a scar running from his ear to his jaw. The other was older, built like a tank, with kind eyes that didn't match his profession. Miss Lily, the older one said, we need to leave. Now. I grabbed my phone, slipped my feet into sneakers, and followed them out in my pajamas, an old college t-shirt and flannel pants. The building was silent, dark, everyone asleep as we descended the stairs and slipped out a back exit I hadn't known existed. A different car waited, still black, still expensive, but an SUV this time with bulletproof glass so thick I could see the layers when the dome light caught it just right. We drove for hours, out of the city, into suburbs, then into countryside I didn't recognize. No one spoke. The younger man drove with precision that spoke of military training. The older one sat in the back seat with me, his hand resting casually near a gun I could see outlined beneath his jacket. Dawn was breaking when we pulled up to a house hidden behind trees and a gate that looked like it could withstand a tank assault. Modern, angular, all glass and steel perched on a hillside overlooking nothing but forest. Inside, the house was sparse but expensive. Minimalist furniture. Security monitors in every room showing feeds from dozens of cameras. A safe room with a door thick enough to survive a bomb. You'll stay here, the older man said, his voice surprisingly gentle. We'll be outside. You need anything, you press this. He handed me a small device, like a car key fob. 1 button. We come running. How long? My voice sounded small in the cavernous space. Until Mr. Constantino says it's safe. They left me alone then, and I stood in the middle of a living room that cost more than most houses, wearing pajamas and yesterday's fear, and tried not to fall apart. My phone buzzed. A text from Sal. I'm sorry. I'll explain everything. You're safe there. My best men are with you. I wanted to throw the phone, wanted to scream, wanted to demand answers. Instead, I texted back, I'm scared. The reply came immediately, I know. So am I. But I won't let anyone hurt you. I'd burn the world down first. And somehow, impossibly, I believed him. 2 days passed. I explored the safe house like a prisoner exploring her cell, beautiful, comfortable, utterly confining. The security men changed shifts but never spoke beyond the necessities. Food appeared, good food, the kind Sal knew I liked. Someone had packed clothes in my size, toiletries, everything I might need. Everything except freedom, everything except answers. On the 3rd day, Sal came. I heard the cars first, multiple engines, the crunch of tires on gravel, then voices, sharp and urgent. I moved to the window and saw him striding toward the house, his silver hair catching the afternoon light, his face a mask of controlled fury. He looked like he hadn't slept, like he'd aged a decade in 3 days. The door opened, and he was there, filling the space, his eyes finding me immediately and doing a sweep that catalogued every inch of me, checking for damage, for fear, for anything wrong. You're okay, he said. And it wasn't a question. Am I? I crossed my arms, suddenly furious. I've been locked in a gilded cage for 3 days with no explanation, no contact, nothing. Men with guns watching my every move. So you tell me, Sal, am I okay? He moved toward me, and I backed up instinctively. Pain flickered across his features, there and gone so fast I might have imagined it. Don't. His voice was rough. Don't be afraid of me. Be angry. Hate me. But don't fear me. Not you. Then tell me what's happening. Tell me why I'm here. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair, the first uncontrolled gesture I'd ever seen from him. There's a man. Dmitry Volkov. Russian. He and I have been competing for territory, business, power, the usual dance. And he found out about you. Saw us together at the gallery, had people following you, watching the hospice, learning your routines. His hands clenched into fists. He sent me a message. Said he'd take from me what I clearly valued. Said you'd pay for my ambitions. Cold washed through me. So you hid me away. I protected you. He closed the distance between us in 2 strides, his hands gripping my shoulders, his face inches from mine. Do you understand what these people are capable of? What they'd do to hurt me? I've seen women tortured, dismembered, returned to their lovers in pieces as a warning. I cannot let that happen to you. So what now? I live in hiding forever? You built me a prettier cage, but it's still a cage, Sal. No. His grip tightened. Now I end this. Now I make sure Dmitry Volkov understands what happens when you threaten what's mine. The possessiveness in those words should have frightened me. Instead, heat pooled low in my stomach, dangerous and intoxicating. I'm not yours, I said, but the words came out breathless. Aren't you? His hand slid up to cup my face, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. Tell me you haven't thought about me every day. Tell me you don't feel this thing between us, this pull. Tell me when you close your eyes at night. You don't imagine what it would be like if I touched you. Really touched you. I couldn't. Because he was right. Because for 3 weeks I'd been falling into something I didn't have a name for. Something that felt like obsession and salvation, mixed into one addictive poison. This is crazy, I whispered. Yes. You're twice my age. Yes. You're a criminal, a killer. Everything I should run from. Yes. His other hand slid into my hair, tilting my head back, his eyes burning into mine. Tell me to stop, Lily. Tell me you want nothing to do with me and I'll walk away. I'll make sure you're protected, make sure you have everything you need, and I'll never contact you again. Say the word. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was the moment, the choice, the cliff edge where I could still step back, still save myself, and if I don't, the words came out barely audible. If I don't want you to stop, the sound he made was something between a growl and a groan. Then God help us both. He kissed me. Not gentle, not tentative, but with weeks of restraint shattering into something fierce and desperate and utterly consuming. His mouth claimed mine like he was drowning and I was air, his hands pulling me against him until there was no space left between us. I'd been kissed before, sweet kisses, fumbling kisses, forgettable kisses with forgettable boys. This was something else entirely. This was fire and possession, and a hunger that threatened to devour us both. His tongue swept into my mouth, tasting, claiming, and I met him with equal desperation, my hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer, needing more. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. You should have told me to stop, he said roughly. I know. This won't be easy. Being with me means danger, means looking over your shoulder, means trusting men with guns to keep you safe because I've made enemies who'd use you to destroy me. I know. I'm selfish enough to keep you anyway. His hands framed my face, his thumbs stroking my cheeks. I'm selfish enough to lock you away where nothing can touch you and pretend that's love instead of obsession. And if I'm selfish enough to want to be kept? I met his eyes, seeing my own recklessness reflected there. What then? His smile was sharp and dark and full of promise. Then I'll give you everything. Every dark, damaged, dangerous piece of me. And I'll take everything you offer in return until we can't tell where you end and I begin. Sal... But first, he interrupted, his expression hardening into something lethal. I have to handle Dimitri. I have to make sure you're safe, really safe. Not just hidden away, but protected by the kind of reputation that makes men think twice before even breathing your name. What are you going to do? What I should have done years ago. He kissed me again, softer this time, almost tender. End this war on my terms. Make an example that will echo through every family, every organization, every criminal enterprise in this city. Fear spiked through me. You're going to kill him. Yes. No hesitation. No remorse. Just cold, simple fact. Him and anyone else who thought they could use you against me. I'll paint the streets red if that's what it takes to keep you safe. I should have been horrified. Should have pulled away, called the police, done something. Instead, I kissed him back, tasting danger and devotion on his tongue, and whispered against his mouth, "Come back to me. Always," he promised. "No matter what it costs. No matter who I have to bury, I'll always come back to you." He left then, taking his security detail and his cold fury with him, leaving me alone in the safe house with 2 guards and the terrible, exhilarating knowledge that I'd just sealed my fate. I'd chosen the beast, and now I'd have to live with the blood on his hands. Blood spilled in my name, for my safety, because I'd become the one thing a man like Salvatore Constantino could never afford. His weakness, his obsession, his reason to make the world burn. 72 hours. That's how long Sal was gone. 72 hours of pacing the safe house like a caged animal, watching news reports that said nothing and implied everything. A warehouse fire in the industrial district. 3 bodies found in the river. A restaurant owned by known Russian associates suddenly closed, its windows shattered, its interior gutted. The guards said nothing, but I saw it in their eyes, respect mixed with something darker. Fear, maybe. Or awe at what their boss was capable of when properly motivated. On the 3rd night, I couldn't sleep. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the forest, my breath fogging the glass, and tried not to imagine Sal lying somewhere bleeding. Tried not to calculate the odds that he'd keep his promise to come back. Tried not to acknowledge how desperately I needed him to. The sound of engines cut through the silence around 3 a.m., multiple vehicles moving fast. I pressed my palm against the window, my heart in my throat, watching headlights cut through the darkness like searchlights. The front door opened. Voices, sharp, urgent. Then footsteps, heavy and quick. Sal appeared in the doorway of the living room, and my breath caught. He was alive, whole, but he looked like he'd been through war. His shirt was torn at the shoulder, dried blood. Not his, I thought, hoped, spattered across the white fabric. A bruise darkened his left cheekbone. His knuckles were raw and split, but his eyes found mine immediately, and the relief in them mirrored my own. Lily. Just my name, but it carried the weight of everything unsaid. I crossed the room in 5 strides and threw myself at him. His arms came around me instantly, crushing me against his chest. His face buried in my hair. He smelled like smoke and copper, and that cedar scent that had become synonymous with safety. "You're okay." I breathed against his neck. "You're okay. Did you doubt me?" His voice rumbled through his chest into mine. "Every second you were gone." He pulled back just enough to cut my face, his thumb tracing my cheekbone with a gentleness that contradicted the violence written across his body. "It's done. Dimitri is dead. His organization is scattered. Anyone who even looked at you wrong is either buried or running for their lives." "How many?" I asked, not sure I wanted the answer. "Enough." His jaw clenched. "Enough that no one will ever threaten you again. Enough that your name is now synonymous with mine. Untouchable. Protected. Mine." The possessiveness should have frightened me. Instead, it sent heat flooding through my veins. "What did you do, Sal?" "What I had to." He kissed my forehead, my temples, my cheeks. Soft kisses that felt like benedictions. What I should have done the moment I realized what you were becoming to me. "And what am I becoming to you?" He went very still, his eyes searching mine with an intensity that made my knees weak. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. He'd probably never shown another living soul. "Everything. My obsession. My salvation. The only good thing in a life built on darkness." His hands tightened on my face. I love you, Lily. I'm too old for you, too damaged, too steeped in blood to deserve even a moment of your time. But I love you with everything I have left that's capable of love. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not because they were unexpected. I'd seen it in every look, every touch, every overprotective gesture. But because hearing them made it real. Made this thing between us something I couldn't deny or rationalize away. I'm terrified of you, I whispered. Good. You should be. But I love you anyway. His control shattered. He kissed me like a dying man given one last breath, his mouth desperate and demanding, his hands everywhere at once. I met him with equal fervor, my fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer, needing to feel every inch of him against me to prove he was real. He was here. He was mine. He lifted me without breaking the kiss, my legs wrapping around his waist as he carried me through the house to the bedroom I'd been using. The door slammed shut behind us, and he laid me on the bed with surprising gentleness, his body covering mine, his weight anchoring me. Tell me to stop, he said against my mouth, even as his hands mapped my body through my clothes. Tell me this is too fast, too much, don't stop. I pulled him down to me, my hands working at the buttons of his ruined shirt. Don't you dare stop. What happened next was fire and possession, and a claiming that went soul deep. He touched me like I was precious and fragile and utterly his. Like he was memorizing every sound I made, every place that made me gasp, every way to unravel me completely. And when he finally made me his in every way possible, when our bodies joined and moved together in a rhythm as old as time, I looked into his storm-cloud eyes and saw my own devotion reflected back at me. This was madness. This was destruction wrapped in silk sheets and whispered promises. This was love in its most dangerous, all-consuming form. Afterward, we lay tangled together, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. The first hints of dawn painted the sky outside the windows. What happens now? I asked quietly. Now? He pressed a kiss to my hair. Now I take you home. Not to your apartment. That's not safe anymore. To my home. Our home. And I spend the rest of my life making sure nothing ever touches you. That sounds like another cage. Perhaps. His arms tightened around me. But this time you'll have the key. You can leave anytime you want. I won't stop you. You say that now. I mean it. He tilted my chin up to meet his eyes. I'm many things, Lily. A killer. A criminal. A man who's done unspeakable things in the name of power. But I won't cage you. I won't trap you. You stay because you choose to. Or you don't stay at all. I studied his face. The scar through his eyebrow, the new bruise on his cheek, the silver hair that made him look distinguished instead of old. 62 years of life and violence and loss had carved him into something beautiful and terrible. And he was offering me freedom, even as everything in him screamed to keep me locked away, where nothing could hurt me. I choose to stay, I said. Relief flooded his features. Why? Because you're the first person in 3 years who's made me feel like something other than a burden or a servant or a daughter watching her mother die. Because when you look at me, I feel seen. Really seen. I touched his face, feeling the stubble scratch against my palm. And because I've never felt safer than when I'm with the most dangerous man I've ever met. You're insane. Probably. I smiled against his chest. But so are you for wanting me. They said I was too old for love. His voice carried a note of wonder. Said I was too cold, too far gone, too much of a monster to feel anything real. What do you say? He rolled us over until I was beneath him, his body sheltering mine, his eyes blazing with everything he felt. I say they were wrong. I say I was just waiting for someone brave enough, or foolish enough, to see past the monster to the man underneath. And if I see both, the monster and the man, then you're the only one who ever has. He kissed me slowly, thoroughly, until I was breathless and aching, and I'll spend every day proving I'm worth the risk you're taking. We left the safe house the next morning. The drive back to the city was different this time. Sal sat close, his hand never leaving mine, his thumb stroking circles on my palm. The security detail had doubled. 2 cars ahead of us, 2 behind, all of them filled with armed men whose job was now to protect me as fiercely as they protected him. "I need to see my mother," I said as we entered the city limits. "Of course." He lifted my hand to his lips. "We'll go now." "And Lily?" "She's been moved to the best hospice facility on the East Coast. Better doctors, better care. Whatever time she has left, she'll be comfortable." Tears pricked my eyes. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did. She's your mother. That makes her family. And I protect what's mine." The hospice was nothing like the first one. This was a sprawling estate with gardens and fountains and rooms that looked more like luxury hotel suites than medical facilities. My mother sat in a wheelchair by a window overlooking a rose garden, looking more peaceful than I'd seen her in months. She turned when we entered, and her eyes went straight to Sal, to our joined hands, to the way he stood beside me like a sentinel. "So you're the one," she said, her voice weak but clear. "I am." Sal moved forward, and to my shock, he knelt beside her wheelchair so they were eye level. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm Salvatore Constantino. I know who you are." She studied him with a mother's keen eye. "I may be dying, but I still read the news, still hear the whispers. Then you know what I am. I know what you do." She touched his face with her thin hand, the gesture so unexpected that Sal went completely still. "But I also know what you've done for my daughter. The bills you paid, the burden you lifted, the way you look at her like she hung the moon." "She did," Sal said simply. My mother's eyes filled with tears. "You love her more than my own life, and you'll protect her, even from yourself if necessary?" He didn't hesitate. "Always." She nodded slowly, then looked at me. "Come here, baby." I knelt beside Sal, and my mother took both our hands, placing mine in his. "I don't have much time left," she said. "Maybe weeks, maybe days. But I need to know before I go that you'll be okay, that you'll have someone." "Mama, don't... Let me finish." She squeezed our joined hands. "I see how you look at him, Lily, like he's your gravity, your anchor. And I see how he looks at you, like you're his redemption." She turned to Sal. Promise me you'll take care of her when I'm gone. That you'll love her even when she's difficult, even when she's grieving, even when she pushes you away." "I promise," Sal said, his voice rough with emotion. "On my life, on my honor, on everything I am. I promise." My mother smiled, and it was the first truly happy smile I'd seen from her since her diagnosis. "Then I can go in peace." I broke then, sobbing against Sal's shoulder, while he held me and my mother stroked my hair, the 3 of us bound together in that moment by love and loss, and the strange, impossible path that had brought us here. 3 days later, my mother passed in her sleep, peacefully, without pain, surrounded by flowers and soft music, and the knowledge that her daughter would be cared for. Sal held me through the funeral arrangements, through the service, through the moment when they lowered her into the ground and I thought I might follow her into the earth. He held me through my grief without trying to fix it, without platitudes, just steady and solid and there. And when I finally emerged from the fog of loss 3 weeks later, I found him waiting, not demanding, not pushing, just waiting. "What now?" I asked him one morning, standing in the bedroom of the house that had become ours, watching the sun rise over a city he ruled from the shadows. He came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. "Now you heal. Now you live. Now you let me love you the way you deserve to be loved. Fiercely, completely, without reservation." "They'll always talk, you know," I leaned back against him, "about the age difference, about what you are, about how a girl like me ended up with a man like you. Let them talk." His lips brushed my temple. "They said I was too old for love, too cold, too dangerous. But you proved them all wrong. How?" "By being brave enough to see me, by choosing me despite everything you knew, by loving me when everyone said I was incapable of being loved." He turned me to face him, his eyes burning with intensity. "You did what no one else dared, Lily. You made a monster remember what it was to be human." I touched his face. This beautiful, terrible man who'd torn apart his world to keep me safe. You were always human, Sal. You just needed someone to remind you. And now that I remember, his hands framed my face. Now that I know what it's like to love and be loved. Now, I said, rising on my toes to kiss him. You never forget again. 6 months later, I stood in the garden of what had become our home. Not the safe house, but the main residence where Sal had lived alone for 23 years. Before I'd stumbled into his life, the garden had been my project. Something to occupy my hands and mind during the long hours when Sal was handling business I didn't ask about. I'd planted roses, white ones, like my mother had loved, and lavender and jasmine that scented the evening air with memories of better times. You've been out here for hours. I turned to find Sal watching me from the terrace, a glass of wine in each hand. He'd shed his jacket and tie, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. The silver in his hair caught the setting sun, making him look gilded, almost ethereal. I was thinking about Mama, I admitted as he joined me, accepting the wine glass he offered. She would have loved this garden. She loved you more. He settled beside me on the stone bench, his arm draping around my shoulders. Everything else was just details. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. This had become our ritual, evenings in the garden, away from security details and business calls, and the constant hum of the empire Sal maintained with brutal efficiency. Out here, we were just two people who'd found each other against impossible odds. I got a call today, I said eventually. From the community college. Sal went very still. And? They accepted me into their nursing program. Classes start in the fall. I watched him carefully, gauging his reaction. We'd talked about this, about me wanting to do something more than just exist in his world, something that honored my mother's memory by helping other people's mothers. But talking and reality were different things. That's wonderful. His voice was even, controlled, but I'd learned to read the tension in his shoulders, the slight tightening around his eyes. You'll be brilliant at it. You're worried. I'm always worried. He set his wine glass aside and turned to face me fully. You'll be out there, exposed, vulnerable, away from the protection I can provide here. There are still people who'd use you to hurt me, Lily. Not as many as before, but they exist. So I should just stay locked in this beautiful prison forever? I kept my voice gentle, but firm. Sal, I love you. I love this life we're building, but I can't just be your possession, hidden away and protected. I need to be my own person, too. The muscle in his jaw ticked. I know. Do you? Because sometimes I see the way you look at me, and it's like you're trying to memorize me before I disappear, like you're waiting for me to realize what you are and run, aren't you? The vulnerability in those two words broke my heart. I'm 62 years old, Lily. You're 26. Eventually you'll wake up and see the monster everyone else sees. See the age difference. See the blood on my hands and the darkness in my soul, and you'll leave. And I'll have to let you because I promised you could. I set my own glass aside and moved to straddle his lap, forcing him to look at me, to see the truth in my eyes. Listen to me very carefully, Salvatore Constantino. I'm not going anywhere. Not because I don't see what you are. I see it perfectly. I see the violence and the danger and, yes, the darkness. But I also see the man who held me while I cried for my mother, the man who reads poetry when he thinks I'm asleep, the man who pays for 3 scholarships at the community college under an anonymous donor name because he believes in second chances, even if he doesn't think he deserves one himself. His hands gripped my hips, his eyes searching mine with desperate hope. You know about the scholarships? I know everything, Sal. I pay attention. I see you. I cupped his face, feeling the stubble scratch my palms. And yes, you're older than me. Yes, our relationship is complicated and dangerous, and probably dysfunctional by normal standards. But I don't want normal. I want you. I want this. I want the man who was supposedly too old for love, but loves me so fiercely it terrifies us both. You make it sound simple. It is simple. I love you. You love me. Everything else is just noise. He pulled me against him, his face buried in my neck, his shoulders shaking slightly. It took me a moment to realize he was crying. silent tears that soaked into my shirt. "I never thought I'd have this again," he whispered against my skin. "After Maria died, I locked everything away, convinced myself I was better off cold, better off alone. And then you looked at me like I was just a man, and everything I'd buried came roaring back. Good." I held him tighter, because that man, the one who feels and loves and hopes, that's the man I fell in love with, not the boss, not the legend, just Sal. He pulled back, his eyes red-rimmed but clear, and kissed me with a tenderness that made my heart ache. "Go to nursing school. Chase your dreams. Be your own person. But promise me you'll let me keep you safe. Promise me you'll accept the security detail, the precautions, all of it. 2 guards, I negotiated. Not 10, and they stay outside the classroom. 4 guards. 2 inside, 2 outside. 3, final offer." His lips twitched. "You drive a hard bargain." I learned from the best. I kissed him again, softer this time. "We'll make this work, Sal. The age difference, the danger, the complicated mess of our lives, we'll figure it out together. Together," he repeated, like he was testing the word. "I haven't had a together in 23 years. Well, you have one now. Get used to it." The next 4 months passed in a blur of new routines and unexpected joy. I started classes, throwing myself into anatomy and pharmacology and patient care with an enthusiasm I hadn't felt since before my mother got sick. Sal had been right to worry. There were incidents. A car that followed me too closely. A man who asked too many questions. A threat spray-painted on my car. But each time, Sal's security detail handled it with ruthless efficiency. And each time, Sal held me afterward, his hands shaking slightly with the fear he'd never fully voice. "I can't lose you," he'd whisper in the dark. "I survived losing Maria because I had nothing left to lose. But you're everything. If something happened to you, there wouldn't be enough of me left to rebuild." "Then it's a good thing I'm careful," I'd tell him, "and well protected, and stubborn enough to survive anything." But the real test came on a Tuesday in October. I was leaving campus, my backpack heavy with textbooks, my mind preoccupied with an upcoming exam. The security detail, 3 men now, a compromise we'd reached, flanked me at a discreet distance. A black sedan pulled up beside me. Different from Sal's cars, wrong in ways I couldn't articulate but felt in my bones. The window rolled down, and a man I didn't recognize leaned out. Young, maybe 30, with cold eyes and a smile that made my skin crawl. "Lily Morrison?" he asked. "Or should I say Lily Constantino? I hear that's what the old man calls you now." My guards moved immediately, positioning themselves between me and the car. But the man just laughed. "Relax. I'm not here to hurt her. Just delivering a message." He pulled out a phone, showed me the screen. A photograph of Sal leaving a restaurant downtown. "Tell your man that the Italians aren't happy about the Volkov situation, that he made enemies when he butchered Dmitri, that there's a price on both your heads now." Terror lanced through me, but I forced my voice steady. "Tell them to come try. See what happens." "Oh, we will." His smile widened. "But first we wanted you to know, wanted you to live with the fear, wanted the old man to watch you looking over your shoulder, waiting for the bullet that could come any day. That's the real punishment. Not death, but the anticipation of it." The window rolled up, and the sedan pulled away. My lead guard, Marco, a former Navy SEAL who'd been with Sal for 15 years, immediately had his phone out. "Boss, we have a situation." Sal arrived at the campus within 10 minutes, his convoy of vehicles screeching to a halt in front of the library. He was out of the car before it fully stopped, his eyes wild, his face pale beneath his tan. "Are you hurt?" His hands ran over me, checking for injuries, his breath coming fast. "I'm fine, Sal, I'm fine. Just scared." "Who was it? What did they say?" His voice had gone lethal, cold in a way I rarely heard. Marco filled him in while Sal listened, his jaw clenching tighter with each word. When Marco finished, Sal pulled me against him so hard it almost hurt. "You're done with school," he said into my hair. "It's not safe. I'll hire private tutors. You can finish your degree from home, but you're not coming back here where I can't protect you. No." I pushed back enough to look at him. "No, Sal. That's exactly what they want. They want me scared, hiding, controlled. I won't give them that satisfaction. Lily, I mean it. I gripped his shirt, forcing him to see the determination in my eyes. You can add more security. You can sweep the campus daily. You can do whatever you need to do to feel like I'm protected. But I'm not quitting school. I'm not letting them win. You're asking me to watch you walk into danger every day. His voice cracked. To send you out there knowing there are men who want to hurt you because of me. Because loving me painted a target on your back. Yes. I touched his face, feeling him trembling beneath my hands. I'm asking you to trust me, to trust your men, to trust that we're stronger together than they are apart. I can't lose you. It came out broken, desperate. Lily, I can't. You won't. I kissed him, pouring every ounce of certainty I felt into it. But you have to let me live, Sal. Really live. Not just exist in a golden cage, but live. That's what love is. Not possession, not protection at all costs, but trusting the person you love to make their own choices even when it terrifies you. He was silent for a long moment, his forehead pressed against mine, his breathing ragged. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. You're braver than I'll ever be. No. I just have something worth being brave for. That night, Sal called a meeting. Not at the house, but at one of his legitimate businesses, a restaurant he owned downtown. I sat beside him at the head of a long table surrounded by men who looked like they'd stepped out of a Scorsese film. His captains, his lieutenants, the infrastructure of his empire. This is Lily, Sal said, his hand resting possessively on my shoulder. Some of you have met her. All of you know who she is, what she means to me. The men nodded, their eyes assessing me with varying degrees of respect and curiosity. The Italians have made a threat against her. Against us. Sal's voice was calm, but the fury beneath it was palpable. They think they can intimidate me by targeting what I love. They think age has made me soft, made me weak, made me too old to defend what's mine. He stood, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. They're wrong. For the next hour, I watched Sal transform from the man who held me, while I cried to the boss who'd built an empire on fear and respect. He laid out a strategy with military precision, identifying key players in the Italian faction, cutting off their supply lines, targeting their revenue streams, making them hurt where it mattered most. We don't start this war, he said finally, but we end it, decisively, brutally, so that a decade from now, people will still whisper about what happens when you threaten Salvatore Constantino's family. The men dispersed with grim purpose, leaving Sal and me alone in the private room. That was terrifying, I admitted. That was necessary. He pulled me into his lap, his arms wrapping around me like chains. I won't apologize for what I am, Lily, for what I'm capable of. Those men threatened you. They sealed their own fate. I know. And I did. I'd accepted this, all of it, when I'd chosen to love him. Just come back to me when it's over. Whatever you have to do, whoever you have to become to keep us safe, just come back to me. Always. He kissed my temple, my cheek, my lips. I swear it. The war lasted 3 weeks. I didn't see much of Sal during that time. He'd leave before dawn and return after midnight, exhaustion and violence written across every line of his face. But he always came to our bed, always held me, always whispered that it was almost over. And then one night, he came home early. I was in the garden, my refuge during the storm, when I heard his footsteps on the terrace. I turned, and the look on his face made my breath catch. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. It's done, he said simply. The threat is neutralized. The Italians have agreed to terms. You're safe. I ran to him, and he caught me, lifting me off my feet, his face buried in my hair. What did you do? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. What I had to. He set me down gently, his hands framing my face. But it's over now. Really over. The city knows. You're untouchable, protected, mine. And anyone who forgets that will pay a price that makes death look merciful. I should have been horrified. Should have run from this man and his casual brutality. Instead, I kissed him, tasting relief and love, and the dark promise that he'd burn the world down before he'd let anyone hurt me. "Thank you," I whispered against his mouth. "For what?" "For proving them all wrong, for showing them that you're not too old for love, not too cold, not too far gone. You're just a man who loves fiercely and protects what's his." "Our," he corrected softly. "What's ours? This life, this love, this future we're building despite everything that should have kept us apart." "Ours," I agreed. 1 year later, I stood in a hospital room wearing scrubs, having just completed my first shift as a licensed practical nurse. My feet ached. My back hurt. I smelled like antiseptic and hard work. And I'd never been happier. Sal was waiting outside, leaning against his car, looking utterly out of place among the hospital staff coming and going. But his face lit up when he saw me. That rare, genuine smile that he saved only for me. "How was it?" he asked as I reached him. "Exhausting. Terrifying. Perfect." I melted into his embrace, feeling his arms come around me, solid and sure. "I helped save someone's life today, Sal. Actually helped. I'm proud of you." He kissed the top of my head. "More than you'll ever know." We drove home through the city he ruled, and I was learning to navigate on my own terms. The security detail followed at a distance. Still there, still vigilant, but less oppressive than they'd once been. We'd found a balance, Sal and I, between protection and freedom, between his need to keep me safe and my need to live my own life. That night, after dinner in the garden and wine on the terrace, Sal took my hand and led me upstairs to our bedroom. But instead of the passion I'd expected, he sat me on the bed and knelt before me, his storm cloud eyes serious. "What are you doing?" I asked, my heart suddenly hammering. From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet box. They said I was too old for this, too set in my ways, too damaged to ever be anyone's husband again. Tears pricked my eyes. "Sal. But you did what no one else dared, Lily. You loved me anyway. You saw past the age, the violence, the darkness, and chose me. Every day, you choose me." He opened the box, revealing a ring that caught the lamplight, a sapphire the color of midnight surrounded by diamonds. "So, I'm asking you to choose me one more time. Marry me. Build this life with me. Let me spend whatever years I have left proving that love doesn't have an expiration date." "Yes," the word came out choked with emotion. "Yes, of course, yes." He slid the ring onto my finger with shaking hands, then pulled me down to the floor with him, holding me like I was the only thing keeping him anchored to this world. "I love you," he whispered. "My brave, beautiful girl who dared to love a monster." "You're not a monster," I told him. The same truth I'd repeated 100 times. "You're just a man who loves me, and I'm just a woman who's crazy enough to love you back." "Crazy," he agreed, smiling against my lips. "Definitely crazy, but happy. Deliriously happy." He kissed me, deep and slow and full of promise. "They said I was too old for love, but you proved them wrong, amore mio. You proved them all wrong." And as we lay tangled together in the bedroom that had become ours, the sapphire on my finger catching the moonlight, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. From that first night at Giovanni's to this moment, engaged, in love, building a life that defied every expectation and broke every rule. They'd said he was too old, too cold, too dangerous, too far gone for redemption or love or anything resembling happiness, but I'd done what no one else had dared. I'd looked past all of it and seen just a man who needed love as desperately as he needed air, a man who'd been waiting 23 years for someone brave enough to see him. And in return, he'd given me everything: safety, security, a love so fierce and protective it sometimes took my breath away. We were an impossible match, the aging crime boss and the young nurse, the monster and the innocent, the darkness and the light, but we were also simply Sal and Lily, two people who'd found each other against impossible odds and chosen to build something beautiful from the wreckage of our pasts. They'd said he was too old for love. We'd proven them spectacularly, wonderfully, completely wrong. And in the warmth of his arms, with my future stretched out before me, full of possibility and promise, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd do it all again, every dangerous moment, every terrifying choice, every step that had led me to him. Because love, real love, the kind that transforms and redeems and makes monsters remember their humanity, doesn't care about age or appropriateness or what society thinks is acceptable. It just is. And ours would burn bright enough to light the darkness for whatever years we had left together.